Hello, all. Welcome to DevOps for the data scientist and containers for the data science. So, those who don't know about what exactly the DevOps is all about and try to tackle by using the several productionizations, issues and MLOps in the head of doing all the activities of productionization, all the models, and how the rules and responsibilities will going to be help us to understand in terms of MLOps and also the DevOps for data scientist. So in this course, you will able to understood what are the different prospective needs to be identified and what exactly the data scientist needs to be enlarged to develop the DevOps operations needs to be containerized applications. So let's get started with this tackle and try to identify what are the benefits we're going to be consider from the DevOps perspective. So if you see this image, the one H is going to be help us to understand the basic identification and operations which is going to be considered at the time of deploying any kind of the models or maybe the projects. In the sense of the data science field, we will also focus more on the development phase and also the operations phase at the time of tackling the more number of operations. So let's say you have developed a applications or maybe you developed the machine learning model that needs to be enlarged with respect to the development phase that needs to be tackled, and code has been completely completed at the time of development phase that needs to be identified to corresponding to build an application, whether you have built a Flask application, Streamlit application, that can be happened with number of the code courses which you already had, that depending on the variable frameworks, the REST APIs, you can also call it as, that needs to be satisfied with the more number of the requirements. And the side by side, you have to more interacting with the phases of the testing wise. What are the different test scenarios needs to be satisfied and what exactly the process needs to be identified corresponding that we have to be enlarge it. And finally, you have to be release that kind of code to the environment of prod. The environment of the prod, which also containing has develop and deploy and operate and monitor. So these are the more specific area in terms of the ops side, ML ops side. I would suggest we can also see the more in detail way of understanding in terms of DevOps perspective and ML ops perspective. So let's get started with the code perspective. The code wise, we are also containing as source code and also the version controlling. So let's say someone is already developed an application which needs to be identified what exactly needs to be developed in that content and what exactly the purpose of the content change. If you want to make some kind of comments or versioning controlling with respect to the different cloud setups which you already had, such as the AWS, GCP, and Azure, which is also very helpful at the time of version controlling. And few of the companies, it is also allows to use as a GitHub. So GitHub is also one of the major resources to identify in the version controlling. You can make it as a different kind of the process as the branches, and you can make it as according to the version controlling you wanted to make it. So in the second phase of dev side, we can also see in has once you completed some development, it needs to be triggered automatically, or maybe the job needs to be run as an automation. The process which had to be automated so that they cannot be even bothered about at the time of failures. It needs to be retry. It needs to be containing some several applications to identify what are the different issues. You have to exceptionally handling those kind of scenarios so that it may not be failure rated again and again. And also in the phase of step, you require to get more understanding of quality control. The quality control should be optimizing whatever the promises you have made at the time of taking consideration of the project constraints and along with the objectives that needs to be satisfied or not. And if you see the one which you already have as a resource and plan, a resource and plan, which is also basically tells us continuous integration and continuous delivery and deployment. So CI/CD pipelines, we can also call it as. For this purpose, we can just release that into the dev to prod, dev environment to the prod environment. So let's also see the other fields how that going to be correlated with the operation side. So in the deploy mode, we have these three: provisioning and infrastructure as a code, and configuration management. So infrastructure as a code, which leads us to understand which needs to be identified that code. Whenever someone is having the version controlling, it needs to be specified as a infrastructure as a code. And provisioning, which is basically helpful to scalable and to interacting with the version we had, and along with needs to be triggered every day or every month or every year, depending on the frequency of the mode. And configuration management, you require to get more number of config files that needs to be tackled by using your solutions or applications as in a code, whether maybe the Python code or Java code, you have to be derived into the configuration. It is also containing some dependencies, and the one which you going to be involved with all the applications that needs to be satisfied with these configuration files. And also the operate side, we'll also see some of the fields such as a visualization and containerizations. We'll also see more in detail way of containerization in this course, and the one which you does not allow more in details of visualization, which basically help us to get some more endpoints according to the Power BI or maybe Tableau to visualize the Google Analytics. So you can probably take from according to the value of the data which you already have. And containerization applications, which basically help us to divide it between the different kind of the nodes and frequencies that needs to be enlarged to more scalable and understanding of the applications factors. So in the step of monitoring prospects, whether it's a rules and responsibility for the L1 and L2 roles, which basically help us to get some more insights or logging details to identify what are the different number of the failures needs to be triggered, what are the success and ratio, and what are the outcomes needs to be derived from that pipeline or maybe setting of the operation side and also the MLO side. So these are the basic opportunity. We'll also discuss more onto the details of how this entire process needs to be leveraged in the other videos. Thank you.